All right, let's go and get this chapter out of the way. We are actually at the tail end of it. We so far what we have been looking at is the tools that are built in. One of the tools that you as IT professional will be using quite frequently is going to be the command line. I think the more time you spend on the command line, I think is going to provide very useful to you guys. We already talked about, the importance of Linux. You need to know Linux. Linux is mostly command line. Any of the cybersecurity tools, if you want to go into cybersecurity, it's going to be command line. Just a heads up, because most of these tools are built. I mean, they have GUIs and stuff as well, but I think if you want to do like advanced level stuff or like really really cool stuff, a lot of those options will be on command line. So I think the more time you spend, the more comfortable you are on the command line. I think the easier time you will have as you progress through your career. So command line is something where it just takes practice. Like you can read about the command, you can watch the videos about the command and stuff, but this is something where you will have to, have your hands on keyboard and practicing and just repetition with these commands. I think this chapter or this section talks about a few of the commands, but I'm talking about in general. But this is a good start. I think there's a video as well in your chapter that you should watch. So again, command prompt is very commonly used. You may have seen this, you may have used this previously. If you have used it, great. If not, no worry about it. You will be able to do that, in this chapter, do it in the labs. And moving forward, I think make yourself comfortable. So command prompt is again very straightforward. This is when you click on a command prompt, like I have a shortcut on my desktop, but I can just simply type in either CMD is short for the command prompt, or I can just simply type in command prompt. Same thing. It's an app. It's built in, and then it will tell you that, hey, you are logged in as this user. This is the default that will shows up. If you logged in with your username, it will show your username there. It says run an administrator. Like if you want to change something where you require administrative access, if you right click on the command prompt, right, it says run as an administrator. By default, it doesn't run as an administrator. You have to actually elevate um, the access or privileges to basically run in the administrator mode. And then the syntax is pretty simple, right? It's the command name, and then you have a bunch of arguments that you can provide, and that's pretty common and straightforward format. If you need help, like if you want to run a command, I think one of the command that we have been using to look up like IP configuration, if you don't know what switches or arguments are available, you can do like / and question mark, just like you see on your chapter. And then what it will do is it will give you all of the options here. It will say that, hey, if you want to run this command, here is a brief usage. Here are all the different switches that you can use. And then it will give you a brief description about each of the option. Hey, you can renew the IP, you can release the IP. And what that really means is the quick definition or description of the command is here. And this is again an example, and they are even showing you the example of these commands. Hey, ipconfig will show information. ipconfig all will show you detailed information. If you run this command, this is what you expect to see. But again, more detail is here, but just so you know, there's a lot of documentation that's available in the command line if you want to run a command. Same thing, like I don't know anything about netstat, but I can say netstat / question mark, and then same similar information will follow where it tells you about a quick description what the netstat command is, all the different switches that are available, and then description about each of the switch at the bottom. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Here
Looks
is
like
some of, sorry, was there a
oh, I'm
question?
sorry. It's more of a comment. It looks like BIOS. This
Yeah, it's just the background color.
okay.
But yeah, but this is a tool, right? So they are giving you some of the commands here. As an example, if I were to um, if I were to look at my download section here, I see a bunch of files here, right? Some
Mhm.
pictures, some presentation, A plus, curriculum, blah blah blah. I can do the same thing with these commands too, where like in the command line, I can go and say that, hey, show me what you have. So as an example, I can say cd dot dot, it says go back one directory or one folder. Cd dot dot, it means, hey, go back one folder. So now you see I'm back to C drive. But similarly, if I am here under the C drive, where is my C drive? So I go to my C drive. This is where I'm at right now. I see application, application, driver, driver, like all of these folders. If I want to look at what folders and files do I have under C drive, all I need to do is just run this command called dir, directory. If you look at it, it's the same content that I see. See that? What if I want to go under the users folder and I see two folders? I see a user named awesome and then a user named public. If I want to go under the users folder, what I have to do is a cd. Cd is for change directory. And then I just type in user. I hit the tab key. It will automatically update the name. I hit enter. Now you see I'm under C drive and I'm under a folder called users. If I type in again dir for directory, it will tell me that, hey, I see two folders called awesome and public. I want to go under username awesome. So again, change directory and go under AWESOME, awesome, enter. I see again a lot of folders under awesome, which again is the same way I'm looking at my GUI, right? In the user interface, I see the same information and I'm seeing the same information in through the command line as well. That's the idea, right? I can say that, hey, I want to go under downloads folder. So change directory, go under downloads. Show me all the files under downloads. And here I see a bunch of pictures, A plus, etc., other files. And I see the same thing here. I was under C drive, under users, under awesome. Now I'm going to go under downloads and I see all of these files. If I look at the path, it's the same path. C, users, awesome, downloads. Look at this path, C, users, awesome, downloads, right?
Mhm.
So this is just how you navigate in the command prompt, in the command line. In the Linux, it's similar. I mean, the concept is the same, but the way you navigate is going to be a little bit different. Some commands are the same, some commands are a little bit different, but the concept is the same. If I want to go again to a particular drive like C drive or D drive, then there are specific these type of commands that I can use. So as an example, if I go under the command prompt, I want to go under, I just want to go back to C drive. What I need to do is I can just say, uh, I can go back all the way to the root drive and I can just say go under D drive. See that? Now I'm under D drive. The D drive has a lot of these different directories, and that's what I have on my machine as an example. So again, this is the section where you will need to run these commands and be able to practice them in your lab. So if you want to copy the files, there are different commands for copy, xcopy, robocopy. I think there's a video in your section, like in the book, where you will be able to see how to use these commands. If you want to create a folder or a directory, you can use the called MD. So again, this is something that I would expect you to practice this in your lab. So make sure that you are practicing these commands in your lab. I will also find some useful like YouTube videos which you can watch and practice these commands as well.
Okay.
In your lab,
Yeah,
what
Sam,
you
hold
will
on
be
just a
doing.
second. Hey, y'all, can y'all mute y'all mic because it's picking up back noise.
Yeah, guys, there's actually a lot of feedback coming. So if you're not speaking, please just mute yourself. These commands, we will be actually using them in the lab. So as you basically create partition or disk partition, you can do it through the GUI, but you also have the ability to basically do it through the command line as well. Again, if your disk is going bad and you want to check your disk, um, basically to see if you have any bad sections or bad sectors on your disk, you can basically run this command. It will check your disk to make sure that it scans all of the disk and see if there is any bad partitions on your disk. Again, more to come on this. We'll look into that, but just know that you can do all of these things. If you want to shut down your computer, if you want to scan for damage or missing system files, there are commands. And if you want to look at the report Windows version and build, you can also use this command. So if I do like win version as an example, it tells you the same information, right? This pop-up now tells you that, hey, this is Windows 10. Here's all the information. If you guys recall, when we ran the system information command, we had the same similar information that we were able to look up. But just know that you can look up this stuff from the command line as well. And that was it, guys. This is a wrap for your chapter. Any questions before we jump into the lab? All right, the silence means no. Let's actually, I already got the lab 1 up. So if you guys would like to tell me which section you guys were having issues with, we can quickly skim through. I want to get to the second lab for today's class. But let's answer some of the questions that you may have. If there is a particular section that you guys want me to review or overview with you guys, let me know. Come on, guys, come off mute. I know you have some questions. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
we
I
can
can hear
hear
you.
Which section you guys want me to review? Is there a particular section? I know we did this lab, I think probably good 50-60% of this lab in the class. So I mean, we could do it again, but then we'll have less time for the lab that I want to cover today, or at least a particular section. So if there is a specific place where you had issues, either navigating or completing a particular step, let me know. Or I know some people were confused about some of the sections, so I just want to make sure that I answer those questions for you guys in this lab. Some of it, like, you have to read through it. It may look confusing as far as the steps. They have a lot of information listed here, and I think it can get confusing. But again, once you get the hang of it, you will get used to it, like how to navigate. As I showed you guys, there are 3 different PCs. One is Windows 8, one is 7, one is Windows 10. How you navigate, how you jump between, how do you log in with certain users or different users type. Like, these things, it's gonna stay similar, so you will get the hang of it. If not, if you had issues in the previous class, you do this lab one more time, you will get the hang of it. But the key is the steps that you are doing in Windows 7 or Windows 10, are you getting the idea? Is that making sense? That's probably the most important thing out of this here. As far as how to navigate within the lab, yeah, that might be a little bit confusing, which is okay, because you will get the hang of it over time. You just need to spend a little bit more time. Maybe the first time wasn't as smooth or wasn't as intuitive to begin with, but I can assure you, when you do the lab 2 or the upcoming labs, things will get easier with time. Because if you look at the lab, what this really was, the first section was navigating within Windows 10, then same thing navigating with Windows 7. And the idea is that look at the differences between Windows 7 and Windows 10. There are subtle differences, but they are enough to capture your attention. And the whole idea was that, hey, if you walk into a customer site, they could have Windows 10, they could have Windows 10. You as professional just need to know the subtle differences and how to navigate within the different operating system. Same thing goes for Windows 8. There are subtle differences. Windows 8, as an example, the Windows 8 doesn't even have the start button. I think that was another important difference. Creating a user account, I think that was one of the section that where we created a user account on Windows 10 system, like user called Sam. We logged in as Sam. And then I think we also looked at the user management or the management console. I think this is something that we covered today, the management console. So if you already have done this, this is great. You already as one step ahead. But note that this is exactly what we covered in the section 2, where we talked about, hey, if there are different tools that you need to use, then the management console will come into play as an example. So again, if you already completed this section, you should be a step ahead. But since we just covered this particular topic today, let's actually look at it together as the class. Okay. So it says open the default management console on Windows 10 and Windows 7 and compare them. Create a custom management console with the certificate snapping. Okay. So it says start with PC1, which is Windows 10. So I'm already at Windows 10. I'm gonna try to log in and let me see what the password is. What's the password for Windows 10? I think it's under resources.
Awesome. We're doing the second one, right? I'm clicking the second one in the lab.
You
Okay.
can click. This is actually the lab number 1. I'm not doing lab number 2. So this snap in is actually still under lab number 1. But since we covered that topic in today's class, I just wanna quickly go over that. I know some users were having issues, but now since I'm here, I might as well just review that with the class together. But then we will be jumping into lab 2. There's one particular section that I want to cover in the class today, where you're like creating disk partition. I think that's really important one for us to cover.
Okay.
So it says management console. It says PC1. It says click on the start button and shows Windows X menu. This contains shortcuts to selection. So again, if I click on it, I get to all of these menu, but they are saying if I right click on it, to get all of these shortcuts. Okay. So it says go to computer management. I go to computer management icon. This window comes up. This is the default management console. Amongst other things, you can use it to view logs, configure accounts, manage devices, disks, and
Quick
services.
request.
Bro.
Hey
Quick
guys, can
request.
you please
Can you hear
mute
me?
yourself?
Can you enlarge him, please? Because I cannot. I can barely see.
Enlarge. Let me see. I know I can probably make this a little bit bigger, the instructions, but the lab.
Yeah, that's why I cannot. You know, it's so small.
How about now? Is this better?
A little bit better.
Because I'm like fully zoomed in, so hopefully this helps a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, cool. So computer management, again, we talked about the looking at the logs, right? Like task scheduler was one, event viewer was another one that we looked at. We also talked about local users and group in our lab. Remember, guys? So if I go to computer management, that's what they're saying. So it's very important if you guys can actually read what this lab is trying to teach us, right? It says computer management. This is the default management console. And you can do a lot of the things just from this one console, such as configure accounts, manage devices, etc., etc. This was one of the screenshot that you guys looked at, local users and group. As an example, here are all of the users that exist, and here are all the different groups that exist on this computer. It says select PC2, right click on start button. Notice that there is no Windows X menu. So now again, they're trying to teach us, look at the subtle differences between these two computers. So I will switch account. I will try to do the same thing, admin. And let me look at the password for PC2. The password is here. I'm going to log in. If I right click on it, all I see is properties and open Explorer. That's it. There's no other menu. As comparatively, if I go back to PC1, when I right clicked on it, I had a bunch of other menus, right? All these shortcuts. So that's a big difference between Windows 7 and Windows 10. It says on PC2, select start and type MMC. So go back to PC2, start, it says MMC. And here is a shortcut. MMC comes up. It says, hey, do you want me to launch this? I say yes. And there we have it. It says in console 1, select file, add, remove, snap in. File, add, remove, snap in. Now it tells me, what do you want me to add? It says select certificate. Select certificate. Add, it says click the add button with my user account selected and click finish. My user account is selected and just select finish. Now if you see that it's added on towards the right. It says now select OK. And there we see the certificate current user is now listed. See that? It says select file, add, remove, snap in. So again, file, add, remove, add in. It says click on certificate, click on add, and it says this time select computer account. Hit next, and it says with the local computer selected and select finish, local computer, and hit finish. Now you see we have two shortcuts created, one for the current user and one for the local computer. It says you have configured a console to use the manage digital certificate installed on the computer and under a user account. It says hit OK. And let's see how this is so useful. It says click on file, click on save, and it says type in certificates and select save.
Somebody, I'm having difficulty logging into the the lab. I mean, I'm logged in, but every time I'm trying to click the first one, it's getting me onto the second one for some reason. It won't let me get to the first.
Okay. Yeah, let's look into that real quick. But what you see here is the certificate icon. I just saved it under my desktop. If I double click on it, what happens? I already have this certificate open as a shortcut that we looked at it. So when I was asking you guys that, hey, make sure you guys are completing these steps when you guys are reviewing your chapter. If you guys recall, this is one of the topics that we saw. Microsoft Management Console. You guys remember this? So this is the exact lab section that we just completed on this lab. How to do this on our computer. So these instructions again are there. This is what I was talking about. Like try to at least play around with Windows 7 and Windows 10 computer and see if you can at least see what a management console will look like. What if you type in the same thing, MMC? Does it give you the same sort of view? Yes or no? What were you able to find on Windows 7? What were you able to find on Windows 10? Use command prompt. Again, we looked at this today, right, in this chapter that we were chapter 2. We looked at some of the commands, like shutdown is another command, check disk, we already looked at it, right? So if I open a command prompt in PC2, right, they're saying open PC2, which is a Windows 7 computer. And it says help, notepad, just run some of these commands. So it says open a command prompt. So I click on here, I say command prompt. I open it up. It says go type in help, see what happens. Enter. We see a lot of different types of commands or information coming up from help. It says type in notepad. What happens? Hit enter. A notepad will open. See how we just opened it through the note from the command prompt? It says type in check disk. Check disk. Enter. It says access denied. Why? If you guys remember, I said if you need to take any administrative action, you need to run as the administrator. So this is where if I now click on the command prompt and I say run as the administrator, it says, hey, are you sure? I said yes. Let's see if I can run the check disk command again. There you go. Now the check disk command is running. Why? Because this command prompt is now running with the administrative privileges. Make sense, guys?
Yeah.
This is exactly what we reviewed in today's chapter. If I scroll down to topic C, command prompt, again, we didn't run all of these commands, but one of them was check disk right here. But again, these labs, you should be able to run them without any hesitation. You're not going to break anything in these lab systems. So make or take advantage of these labs, guys. I cannot stress enough how important these labs are. These labs, if you know everything that they're covering in these lab, I can tell you that you will not have any issues when you go for the interview, because this is the exact things that you are doing on day-to-day basis for most of this stuff. If you know this much, I can assure you, you won't have issues with your interview.
A quick question for
Yes.
the students that were in the 101 too, the 101 class. Do we still got access to the labs in there?
No, not these labs.
Okay.
I mean, the labs in the hardware sections a little bit different. Those are mostly hands-on stuff
Okay. Okay. I got you.
because you're playing with the hardware stuff, right?
Right.
So since this is the software section, this is why CompTIA made these labs available for us to access them online.
Okay.
Excellent question, though.
Awesome, bye. I would like to use the lab, but it's still giving me, like, you see how on the top of yours it says 1 using Windows features and tools. When I try to launch that, it just comes up as number 2 for me.
Yeah,
And then
you
it's,
have to actually say cancel the number 2 lab because you can only launch one lab at a time.
how do
You
I?
cannot have, yeah, so you cannot
Yeah,
have
that's
two
what I
labs.
did. I canceled that lab, and then I was able to launch Windows features and tools.
Yeah. Same thing, one of the command, and I'll show you guys how to get to it. So if you were to basically shut down this computer, this was another command, I believe that we looked at, the shutdown command, right? Right here. You could simply just say that, hey, it says run the following command to restart the computer after a short delay. So if I were to just copy this, shutdown -R, /R, T, and then 30, let's see what happens. It say Windows will shut down in less than a minute. Okay, let's see if it even shuts down.
Hey, Daddy. Hey, Mommy. Hey, Daddy.
So again, use these commands, the commands that you have in the lab 1, as well as, there you go. Now the computer is shutting down. See that?
You want
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. The other one was browse registry. This is again something that we also talked about in today's class, right? If you already done this, again, you are ahead of the game. But if you have not, then let's take a look at it, because we are partially reviewing lab 1, but lab 1 actually has a lot of good stuff for chapter 2 as well. So let me go back, quickly log in. We can probably kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So again, PC2, we were able to shut down. And now what we are going to do, we're going to launch in the regedit. Again, this is a shortcut of registry editor. So we launch, it says, hey, are you sure? Because you could make computer or changes to this computer by running this command or by opening this up. It says you can now see the registry hive in the left hand pane. There are 5 of them. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It says select the arrow next to H key local machine to see its subkey. So H key local machine. I expand it. It says expand the system hive. There we go. And then it says you can see more than one control set. These are discrete configuration set. Expand current control set. There you go. We continue with it. It says backup the desktop subkey for the current user and then modify the value. You see that? What did we talk about in the class when I was delivering lecture? Anytime you want to make changes, what do you want to do? Do a backup. So how do you do backup? It says from the registry editor menu, select file and export. So what we want to do is select the H key current user, H key current user, and then it says click on control panel and desktop. Control panel, desktop. It says select this section. It says this section of registry contains per user settings stored in the account profile as ntuser.dat. In the right panel, scroll down and locate the wallpaper value. You can see that the wallpaper is currently set. So if I scroll down, here's the wallpaper. See that? There's the value that is set for the wallpaper. It says from the registry editor menu, select file and export. File, export. And it says verify the export range option is set to selected branch. Right here, selected branch. And the branch is the same. User, control panel, and desktop. That's what we have selected. And it says save as. Okay. And the file name is backup. And we're going to save it. So again, anytime you're making any changes, make sure you have a good backup. It says right click on the desktop and select. Right click on the desktop and select personalize. Where is desktop?
Desktop is on your left side. In the control panel, it says desktop.
Yes. So desktop. And it says, no, I don't see. That's not what I'm looking for. Collapse new. No, that's not what it says right click on the desktop, select personalize, select desktop background from the picture. Okay, so it's basically saying we need to go minimize this. This is the desktop that they want us to use. It says go select personalize. And it says select desktop background. So desktop background. It says select a solid color, choose any color, and then select save changes. So I'm going to choose maybe yellow. Oh no, green. Okay, save changes. It says switch to the registry editor and press F5. So I'm gonna keep this up. Here we go. Here's the Windows key that we were looking at, right? It had some value. Let me just expand this. It says the theme, blah, blah, blah. It had a bunch of stuff in there, wallpaper. right? So it says, go ahead and actually press F5. I'm going to do that. Or I think it's just refresh. If I scroll down and it says select F5, and then it says switch to the registry to F5. Okay, we refreshed it. Now it says from the registry editor menu, select file and import. So now you guys just see that. What did we do? We changed the background, right? And now I'm going to do is file, import, and we are going to be importing our backup that we backed up, right? Before we made any changes. Is that true? It says the key value
I'm
contained.
sorry. Can you do that? Can you do that part one more time? I didn't see.
Welcome.
Which part? This part right here?
When you were importing the file.
Oh yeah, the importing file is this simple. It says file. The first option we exported, right? But now we're just going to say import. And then this is the file where we backed up. You select it and you hit open. And it's just going to say, hey, we successfully added that value to the registries. That's it.
I'm trying to go to the.
Yeah, but quickly, if you see the background is still old. I mean the solid background. It says in order for us to see the changes, we need to log off and log back in. So now if I try to log back in, I go in, I type in the password. Let's see if my original background comes back up. You see now I don't see the solid background anymore. I have a different background. You guys see that?
I'm confused.
Why are you confused? Where are you confused?
I got stuck where it said where it was at the right when I went into personalization
Yeah.
to go into the desktop.
So yeah, so right click on the desktop, minimize it, minimize everything.
Okay, I'll just X out. All right.
No, don't
Right-click
X out, just minimize it. Just go to personalize
Okay.
and then click on the desktop background
Desktop.
in the back at the bottom. If you can see my screen,
Desktop.
can you see my screen?
I can see. Yeah, I can see your screen.
Right
but I'm-
here, right here at the bottom.
Oh, okay. I see it now. All right, left side. Mine shows as Windows. That's why I
Okay,
had screen.
no problem. Yeah,
Desktop background.
and that's where they wanted you to basically pick a solid color.
Okay.
See that?
Pick below.
Yeah. And as I said, guys, it is okay for you to fumble as you go along. This is part of your learning experience. I'd rather have you guys make mistake, take as much time as you need while you are learning and you are in this learning environment versus when you show up at the job and you are playing around with the customer computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is your time to learn. It's okay to make mistake. It's okay to spend a little bit more time. No one is going to complain. You just have to basically dedicate a little bit more time on yourself. You're sacrificing this time, but then you're gaining this experience and knowledge, which you can apply in the real world.
Okay, so I saved those changes. Right?
All right, I'm going to continue. This was honestly the last section. Again, this is actually pretty good because this is part of chapter 2 that we covered, because chapter 2 also talked about the registry editor, right? That was one of the tools, if you guys remember. Registry editor was one of the section that we talked about. All right. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically close this. We have 1 hour, so I want to make the most of this time. So I'm going to close this lab. It says, do you want to leave the lab? Yes, I want to leave. I want to go back to my labs. And now what I want to do is I want to launch the managing files, folders, and disks in Windows. And here it says, hey, you are using, it says the maximum allowed numbers of active labs are there. Do you want to launch this lab again? Because I have the lab 1 is running. And I don't want it. I'm just going to hit cancel. And I'm saying I want to launch a new instance. And now it will kick me into the second lab.
So we're going into manage files, folders, and disk windows this time.
That's the lab that I want to go in and spend a little bit of time. Yes, that's the next hour. We want to look at that together.
Okay. At least now I know how to change the desktop background.
No, I mean, that's a good learning exercise. But the important takeaway was anytime you're making these changes, as I was trying to explain you guys, those changes are being saved in the registry automatically. This is how your system is keeping track of all of the changes that you are making. So we just did a backup, and then we were able to import the backup, and then we saw that the background was automatically changed because the backup that we made was with the other background that was not solid, right? So that just goes to show you the settings that we are, or the changes that we are making, they are directly happening or basically getting coincided with the registry hive. All right, so now this is lab number 2. The main section that I want to get into, we haven't talked about managing files and folders, to be honest. But in chapter 2, we did talk about disks in Windows, and this is honestly the section that I want to basically spend a little bit more time. So let's get started. Okay, we'll spend a little bit of time here, even though we haven't really talked about this, but I think it's okay. Let's actually spend maybe a few minutes. But disk partition is where I would like to spend the time. Actually, you know what? I want to just spend time with the disk partition. I think it's an important topic. It's going to actually take us a little bit of time for us to basically go through these steps. So let's do that. So it says to PC1. So we want to be under PC1. It says PC1 is with RAID disks. So log into PC1.
On PC1 instead of PC2.
It says the username again. We click on other users. We would like to type in the username as admin. The password is going to be this password.
Yeah, Daddy was even telling me the other day, can you tell me how to get this one? I just looked at him. I told y'all months ago.
I need a little computer to sneak and use here.
Guys, can you please put yourself on mute?
I told you.
Other user. Okay, I go down /admin. And then password is ASS 0. Awesome. You muted yourself.
Yeah, sorry, I had a visitor here in the room.
Oh.
All right, so if you guys were in the previous class, do you guys remember what RAID is?
RAID is it's like your hard drive, and a RAID array has different, like each computer has a certain amount of storage with their disks. So the computer configures the storage through RAID and RAID array.
We talked about RAID. Who wants to take another shot? What is RAID?
What I know, I think it's all about like how it saves, or it's like backup. And then I think there's RAID 0 till 5. That's I can't remember.
That's getting close. Yeah, that's good. That's a good start.
Yeah, and I think 0 is like it's not good for backup.
Mm-hmm.
5 is the best as far as I know.
RAID is RAID. Can I answer?
RAID is a redundancy
I
system.
think
Is
random
that
access. I don't know, something to do
Check
with
that
memory.
it increases performance,
Yeah.
reliability, the data storage. It can be a hard disk or SSD.
Oh yeah, I think I read that in the chapter. I think it's how you want your if you want your laptop to go in hybrid mode, like if you're not using it a certain amount of time, or if you want how you efficient you want it to.
Okay. Good stuff. Yeah. So the RAID basically, in a
The RAID.
simpler, yeah, there is no right or wrong answer. I think you guys all were on. You all said it right. Is for redundancy. Is to have high availability. It could be for resilience. It could be for fault tolerance. It could be for speed. There are a lot of benefits, but then there are different options. There's RAID 0, there is RAID 1, there is RAID 5, there is RAID 6, there is RAID 10. So there are different types of RAID that you can configure, and each RAID has its own sort of requirements. As an example, if you configure RAID 0 or RAID 1, like RAID 0, you need to have minimum of disks, 2 disks. The RAID 1, same way, you have to have minimum of 2 disks for you to configure RAID 1. But there are like pros and cons, which we reviewed in the previous class. If this is your first class, guys, no worries. Don't feel like you are left out. You will cover that in the hardware section of the class. But the whole idea is that RAID is there to basically give you some resiliency that is built into it. So in this case, what we are going to be doing, it says, hey, this computer has RAID disks, and we'll see what those are. But important thing is you always want to read what we are trying to accomplish. It says the PC1 VM virtual machine has been configured with additional disks. For this activity, configure a simple partition on one of the new disks. It says use NTFS formatting. And the label should be lab files and assign the drive letter L. Before we do anything, if I go to sort of this PC, what do I see? I see only one disk. It says the partition called C drive. We all see it. We all have it on our computers. Pretty straightforward. And then I see a DVD drive with a letter D assigned. Once we go through this lab, we're going to create a new partition. So we talked about a tool called, oops, disk management console. Okay, so which was right here. We talked about this. You can manage disk. You can create different partitions. What is the difference between a disk and partitions? Can someone tell me?
I'm just gonna take a wild guess. I'm gonna say that with the partition, what it does is that it'll give you the same. Well, it's gonna take at least half of the storage from the regular disk, and it'll copy it in a sense.
No, you're talking about RAID. What is disk versus partition?
Okay. Um,
So an example would be when I say home versus rooms, right? Home
yeah.
is, imagine that as your disk, right? It's one whole solid disk that you can hold it in your hand.
Okay.
But when I say rooms, what does that mean? I have divided my home into smaller rooms or smaller chunks. Hey, this room is for, mom and dad. This room is for the kids. This is my living room, kitchen, etc., etc. I've divided that space into different sort of sections for my needs, right? So imagine the disk is your home, and then the partitions are they're operating or doing different things, such as you may have a partition for backup, like for restore partition, you may have a partition for your operating system like C drive. You may have another partition to store your sensitive files, right? All of your office stuff. You are a college student. You may have a separate partition for your college stuff like your homework, right? In the real world, for your office use, you may have a partition for the projects or the work that you're doing, right? It's very straightforward. And then you can allow certain permission. As an example, in your room, where if you have a safe that might be secure in a separate room in the closet with some locks on it, right? Only a handful of people can access the room and the safe. Same thing, if you're working on a sensitive project, you may want to have a separate partition which only a handful of people have the ability to access those files, right? So the idea is the same, and that's where I want you to think about disk versus partitions. So let's start with this exercise. It says step number 2 is we already logged in. It says right click on start and select disk management. Again, this is Windows 10. Right click, disk management. It says a dialog box appears because new disks have been detected. If you look behind the dialog box, you should see the new disks are marked as unknown. Where is it? Do you guys see it? Unknown, unknown.
It's right under the disk 0. It's on disk 1.
Ah, there you go. It says unknown. Okay. It says, so again, the disk numbering starts always in computer from 0. Okay. So my first disk was 0. The new disk that it's seeing is disk 1 and disk 2. Right? And now it's saying select OK to initialize the disks using GPT partition. The new disks are now marked online. So GPT is a new style of how you basically initialize a disk. For now, just remember the GPT stands for GUID partition table. This is how you're like whenever you are saving files or creating folders, the disk is keeping a track of the files and folders that it's managing, right? It's basically a system of record. So there are different ways for it to keep track of all the files that it has stored on the disk. So GPT is a newer way for us to keep track of the record or the files that it's responsible for or that it has saved on them. Simply select OK. Now we see that disk 1 and 2 are now online. See that?
Yeah.
But look at the difference, right? The disk 0 right here, it says there is a recovery partition. This is a health, just making sure the disks and everything is working fine. And here's our C drive. See that?
Yeah.
So it means my operating system is installed on disk 0. Pretty simple, straightforward. I don't see any issues. It says it's online. It's telling me how much storage or how big the disk drive is. It's about 40 GB. But look at the other two disks. It says they are online. They're like almost 8 gigs here, 8 gigs here. Right? For RAID, you have to have the same. One of the condition for the RAID is you must have same drives, like same storage, same vendor and same storage for the optimal performance. So in this case, we see that they are same size. But the key thing that I want you to also notice is it says unallocated, like there's nothing on it. These disks are blank. They are available to you, but there's nothing on them. It says right click on the unallocated space on disk 1 and select new simple volume. Complete the new simple volume wizard by selecting the following options. Okay, that's simple enough. There are a bunch of options. I'm just going to say new simple volume. This will come up. I click on next. It says, hey, the maximum disk space you have in megabytes is 8,174, which basically is saying 7.98 gigabytes. The minimum disk space in the MB is 8. It says, hey, how much space do you want to allocate? In this case, we're just going to keep it all the default. We say, hey, just create the partition for the entire disk or the space. Said okay. It says, hey, which letter, by the way, would you like me to assign? It says just pick letter. If you see there is no letter C or D because they're already taken. Remember, C is already taken up here and the D was our DVD drive. So we'll select letter L. It says click next. It says, okay, do you want me to format this disk? It says do not format or do format. If you look at these file system, we haven't reviewed the file system, but just know that NTFS is a file system that we normally use. So we always choose NTFS file format or file system. The unit is something that we haven't covered up to this point, but just select for the default for now. We will cover that in a later chapter. Okay? Because we're going to go into more detail in the upcoming chapters. Volume label, it says, hey, what's the volume? In our lab up at the top, it told us that the label should be called lab files. That's exactly what we are going to do. Lab files. It says perform a quick format. Make sure you have a checkbox. That's what it says. It says leave NTFS selected and verify the perform a quick format is checked. In the volume label box, make sure we have the name suggested. It says click next, click finish. Wait and see what happens. Check this out. Now we have a volume called lab files. The partition is called L. It says it's healthy and it says it's NTFS. Now it also shows up at the top. So if I open up my computer, watch what happened. We had the C drive, if you guys remember, and the DVD drive, but now I see another partition called lab files, and the letter is L. This is exactly what the task was up here at the top. A PC1, configure a simple partition on one of the new disks, use NTFS formatting, label this partition as lab files, and assign a letter L. Did we achieve it?
We did.
That's it. Simple enough. Now you can go and save files if you want. It's accessible. It's available to you guys. So this is very important exercise. You see that?
Wow.
All right. It says, what's the next one? It says now browse Windows 10 file paths. This is something, again, we are going to skip. I'll let you guys do that part. Command prompt navigation. Again, we looked at the command prompt a little bit, right? But this is what we also reviewed, these additional commands that I showed you guys. But the idea is the same. I want you guys to have this additional hands-on exercise on the command prompt. You can type in CMD, that's a shortcut, or you can type in command prompt. It's the same result, same thing. This black window will come up. You can maximize it. And it says, hey, type in CD backslash. The backslash is right under the backspace key. It's called, here's the forward slash, which is basically right next to the shift key. This is a forward slash. What the slash that they are talking about is right under the backspace key. This is a backslash. It says open a command prompt, and then it says type in cd dot dot. So I skipped a step. So cd dot dot, I already showed it to you guys. It means it's going to basically go one directory back, one folder back. Right now we are under users and admin. If I type in change directory dot dot, it's gonna go back one folder. See how now we are under the directory called users. It says now type in cd backslash and press enter. See what happens. CD backslash. It says now it will take us all the way back to the root directory. So as an example, if I go under users, if I go under admin, administrator, or actually under the admin directory. If I want to go all the way back to C drive, like all the way up here, I will have to type in cd dot dot and then cd dot dot one more time. But what if I just type in cd backslash? What happens? It takes me all the way back to the root directory. Remember, we talked about this in the previous class, the root directory. This is what this command is. So look at the subtle difference between cd dot dot versus cd backslash. You guys see the difference? Cd dot dot goes one directory back, but cd backslash will take you all the way back to the root directory. Again, once you get the practice, you will get the hang of it. Okay. It says enter the command called dir. We already looked at it. It says directory. It just lists out all of the stuff that I see under a particular folder that I'm in. So again, if I'm under the C drive, these are all the folders that I have. But if I type in the command called dir, it's basically going to give me the same information. It's just showing you what's under that particular folder that you are in. It says go ahead and actually type in the dir / question mark. It's again help, but then we are looking for specific help about the directory. What other options do I have? It says the directory command display a list of files and subdirectories in a directory. Here are different attributes that I can invoke. I can display files with specified attributes, whether it's a directory, whether it's a hidden file, if it is a system file, whether it's a read-only file. If I use the B, it says user bare format. If I use C, display 1,000 separators in file sizes, so on and so forth. It just gives you a lot more information. So let's see if I can say dir with uppercase A. Now you see I can see a lot more information. Do you guys see this? You guys see the difference? Probably not. Let me show you guys the difference. If I do dir, it shows me just the files that I can see. Similar here, I can just see these files. But when I use dir /a, now it's showing me a lot more information, because what does the A means? It says display files with specified attributes. It's going to show us all the directories, but pay attention here. It's also going to show us the hidden files. It's also going to show us system files. They may be hidden by default, but with this command, it's going to show us everything here.
You said dir /a, right?
Uppercase A.
Yeah, I did. I don't know why.
You see, I don't see recycle bin here because it's hidden. I see documents and folders or documents and settings. I don't see it here because it says it's a junction. I see lab files there, right here. I see open SSL, yes. Do I see page file.sys? No, I don't see it here. Maybe it's a hidden file or directory or file. This is a directory, this is a file.
Even swap files is not there.
Because they are hidden. If I wanna, I think there is going to be a lab about the files and directories. I think you guys covered that we covered that in the previous chapter. How can I show the hidden files? Can someone tell me how to get there? If I click on view, I click on options. I click on the folder option here. This is a general tab. I click on view. I can say that hidden files and folders. By default, it says don't show hidden files, folders, or drives. If I click on show hidden files, folders, and drives, now what happens? I see more stuff.
Quick question. Are there hidden files or folders done intentionally, or is just like a default of the computer, or is this something you can do yourself as well, hide files?
You can hide files if you want, but the vendor, the Microsoft actually hides the system files and folders by default. Why? Because they don't want an average user to be playing around with the files or folders that are very critical to the system or to the operating system. If you accidentally move the file or delete those folders, your system is going to start malfunctioning. So intentionally, Microsoft hides the system folders that an average user don't need to know. It's there. But you as professional now need to know, because there could be a few things that you may need to look at, and you may have to go in and say that, hey, I want to show me all the files and folder, because you may have to make some changes, right? So for an average user, the default is don't show.
So you went into local disk.
Yeah, you
And
open up as an example, like your Windows or File Explorer. Okay. Then you click on View,
view.
and then on the right side you see this
Hidden items. Okay.
option, and then under the folder option, click on View tab, and then this is where you will see Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives.
That is awesome.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, here are again more stuff that you need to do for like copy files. This is again part of your lab. In the last section that we looked at was run these commands, right? The commands were again dir, cd dot dot, cd backslash. Again, do some practice on those. But then if you look at the other one, it says move and copy files, right? This is exactly what this section is going to give us. So it says in this step, you will identify some of the differences between copy, Xcopy, and robocopy. You need to copy the content of the folder called C on the C drive called lab files to a data folder on the drive. The data folder does not currently exist. It means we are going to create a data folder. So if you guys recall, if I go back to the folder, we created this partition, right? The L drive is empty. There's nothing saved there. So now we are going to use the command line to copy some files, because if I go back to my C drive, it says C drive and lab files. There's a folder on the C drive which is called lab files. There's a lot of stuff in there, right? But now what we are going to do, we are not going to copy and paste like how we normally use. We can simply say, hey, copy this and go ahead and actually paste this here, right? I could do that, but that's not the intent. I don't want to do that. I will cancel this. I'm going to delete it, because we would like to see how can I do copy and paste using the command line. So now what we are going to do, we have the command prompt up and running. I'm going to clean it up just to clear it. It says run the following command and note the errors. So you are expecting to see errors. If I look at the command, it says copy what? Copy C colon, this folder called lab files. And then you see there is a star at the end, which means copy everything that you see in this folder. And then it says paste where? Copy this and paste to a drive letter called L, and then create a folder. If it's there, fine. If not, create a new folder called data. I hit enter. It says you are going to get some errors. Let's see what the errors I see. It says system cannot find the path specified. It means it's saying that, hey, I don't know what you are talking about. Go away. Okay. It says the system cannot find the path specified. This is an expected error. Now it says copy this other command. It looks very similar, but there's one slight difference. Can someone tell me what that difference is?
So the backslash?
Backslash towards the end. Yes, sir. Excellent job. It's the same command. Attention to details matter when you're using command line. Do you see any errors now? Nope. Let's validate. Do we see the files there? So I'm gonna go back to my C drive. There were these bunch of files. Let me go back to my L drive. It says one file copied. Okay. But I don't know what happened. Something happened. It says, look at the last message in the output. It says, does it seem odd? It says, browse the L drive in Explorer. You will see a data file with no extension. Is that what we're seeing here? I should be seeing a lot more data, but why am I not seeing anything? So if I put these side by side, you guys will see what I'm talking about. So here's my C drive. We said copy anything in the folder called lab file. So there's all of these files here and paste it into L drive. Look at the difference. I only have one file which is called data. That's what our lab is saying. Step number 3 says, look at the message in the output. Does it seem odd? Browse the L drive in the Explorer. You will see data file with no extension. It says, hey, one file's copied. What happened to the rest of them? There were so many files. Interesting. It says, open the data file in Notepad and verify that the content of the files copied in the shown file. Okay. So if I try to double click on this, it says open with the Notepad. Where's the Notepad? Notepad is right here. Open. Oh my God, I can't even read what it is. But I see a bunch of other stuff. Gibberish, some more data with that I can't read. I don't know what happened. I'm just gonna close it. I don't know what this is. It says step number 5, it says close the Notepad and delete the data file. Okay. Delete. Now we have nothing in the L drive again. Back to square one. What do we do now? It says now try the first command again, but use the X copy rather than copy. Ooh. Okay. Let me type in here. So again, everything is the same, but instead of copy, oops. Let me just clear it. Instead of copy, I am going to say with X copy. Now it says run this command again. See what happens. It's thinking, it's going slowly but surely. Copying. Okay. Let's wait. Okay, it's going, it's moving. Okay, I see my C drive on the left. I'm gonna bring up my L drive. I see this data folder, right? Because that's what we said. We want to create a data folder. What do I see in it? Ooh, check this out. It says 60 files copied. That's strange. It copied all of the files, but where are all of these folders? I see these folders too, right? You guys see that? I don't see containing nothing, empty, FTP. I don't see. All I see is all these individual files starting from here, actual keylogger, etc., etc. That's what I see. What happened to all these folders? Now it says use the file explorer to compare two folders. You should see that the command has copied the files but not the subdirectories. You guys see that? You guys paying attention? You guys seeing the difference?
Yes.
I was
This
trying
is
to do it.
showing you guys how these commands work and what you can and cannot do with these commands. So there are subtle differences when you use each of these commands. That's the whole purpose of looking at this section: copy, xcopy, and robocopy. It says work out the xcopy command to duplicate completely content to the folder. What is the command that you see? Okay. Now it says run the command to verify as you expect it to work. It says, okay.
I got stuck at number 4.
It says open the data file. So if you double click on the data file,
Double click on the data. Where? Oh man,
open the L drive.
the L drive. Okay, I opened
There
the
should
L
be
drive.
one file called data, right?
Yeah, it's in there now.
So double click on it
Double click on data.
and then click on the notepad.
Notepad. Okay.
That's what they wanted you to see.
Okay. Okay. Oh my god.
You're right. Like, I don't know what this is.
It's like hieroglyphics. Yeah, that's tough. Close the notepad and delete the data file. Okay. Close the notepad. Exit out. Delete the file. So delete. Says no, try first command again, but use X copy rather than copy. Okay. Try this out again. X copy.
If you guys look at your chapters, okay, there is a command prompt section there. So if you see this play button, what that means is they will walk you through these commands. Also, if you look at the MMC console, the registry editor, the use performance and troubleshooting tools. So these are videos. Okay. So as an example, if I click on the command prompt video, there is actually a video in it. It has a lot more instructions as far as what commands you should be running, but also there should be a video as well at the bottom. So if I play this video, it's about 3 minutes video. Okay. And what they're going to do, they're going to do the same thing. They will walk you through step by step how to copy the files. See that?
Yeah.
So look at this video as well for this exercise and try to do the same thing with what we were doing in that lab. Okay. So make sure that you guys pay close attention how to use the copy command, the xcopy command, and robocopy, because they are showing you sort of the same information here. First, they use the copy command, and I think as we progress through this video, they're going to be using the additional commands. Okay.
So every time they enter C, because it's all coming through C, it's just saying command copy, right? Like that's the computer's way of noticing, like, all right, this is what you want me to grab and move depending on typing.
Yeah. Basically, what you are trying to do here is, if I go back to the lab here, the example that I was giving you guys, let's say you downloaded a bunch of files that are sitting on your C drive, right? This is what you see. C drive, here's my folder called lab files, right? If I click on this path here, it's going to give me the same path. Hey, you are right now under C drive, and there is a folder called lab files, right? That's the path.
Right.
So in the command prompt, you have to specify the path.
The path. Sorry. Okay.
Where the file is, where is it coming from, and where you are copying to, the source and destination. The source is all of these files are under C:\lab files. That's the directory. The destination is going to be the L drive, and there is a folder called data.
Data. Okay.
That's where it needs to be.
Okay.
And that's what we are saying, source and destination. So there's a specific syntax that you have to follow, because the computer has to be very literate. Like, it's a dummy device, but you have to tell it exactly where it's coming from and where it's going to, where you're copying and where you are pasting. Like, we're so used to like the GUI, which makes it very easy. Like, we just, this is just happening in the backend. Like, if I delete this, like when I say copy this here, my computer is keeping track of that. Hey, I am already in the C drive, and the folder that I'm copying is lab files. The computer already has that knowledge because I'm just doing through the GUI. When I paste it, I know exactly where I'm pasting because I am already in the L drive, right? So this, on the left side is my source, and on the right side is my destination, and I can just simply say paste. So computer just doing this automatically for us because we are so accustomed to the user interface, the GUI, right? The graphical user interface. But if I were to accomplish the same thing from the command line, then I'm going to have to invoke these commands, and I'm going to have to specify what my source is, what my destination is, and then the command that I need to use to be able to accomplish that task. Make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Now, I was gonna ask because you said that most of the like as far as using the Linux programs, they usually go off the command line, right? So we're
That
gonna
is
be
correct.
more of that. Okay. All right.
All right, guys, I would like you guys to complete this lab on your, when you, as part of your homework. So there is a section called disk part. Okay, this is the part where you will be utilizing the command line to basically create the disk partition. Okay, so you will have to then use the command line. Remember, in our chapter, we said that you will use the copy, xcopy, robocopy, create a directory. So do that. But then also for the disk partition, you will use the disk part command, the format command, and check disk command. Like, we already used the check disk command, but that's the section where you will be creating command line to also create the partition. And once you create the partition, you are going to be using the disk format. So this is a section that I would like you to go and basically do it. It's 2 steps. Use the disk part and then use the format command. We have 15 minutes. Let's do it together. But that's again the lab part. First, we did it through the GUI. Now this lab wants us to do it through the command line. So as you guys get more used to the command line, this will come second nature. You just need to be able to spend a little bit more time with the command line. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So let's look at this.
We're going to configure software.
It says configure software RAID. In this step, you will explore the option of configuring software RAID, which stands for redundant array of independent disks. Mirroring means that each file written is duplicated to the 2 disks. If one disk failed, the volume will continue to work. The drawback is that only 50% of the disk space is available. So what that means, you're using RAID 1. As the next task, reconfigure the lab files partition as a mirrored volume and mount it as a lab files to the public folder. So again, if you guys remember, we created this volume here called the lab files, but we see that the disk 2 is still empty. We have not mirrored this into RAID configuration. We are only using disk 1. Disk 2 is still empty. So it says switch to the disk management console, right click on disk 1 and select convert to dynamic disk. Okay. Where is it?
It didn't say that. I right click.
mm, 1 second. Format, extend volume, shrink volume, add mirror.
Convert to
Right here. You have to actually click on the disk 1.
Oh, okay.
Convert to disk 1, and it's saying convert to dynamic disk. It says, hey, you must have another disk that you want me to convert to dynamic disk. And the dynamic disk will be disk 2. Right? This is the disk 2 that we had for RAID configuration, remember?
Mhm.
And then it says click OK. It says, hey, you want me to convert? And watch what happens. It says yes, continue. Check this out. It's converting. It says now, it says right click on lab files. It says add mirror. It says the add mirror is going to be our disk 2. Check this out. Resyncing. Now anything that I save on L drive on disk 1, it will automatically save to
Disk 2.
disk 2. That's what the RAID is for, right?
Right.
And since this is the first time we are syncing, it's just going to take a little bit of time, but anything we have on this drive will be copied exactly as is onto the other drive automatically. You don't need to do anything. The system will take care of it automatically for you. Right now it's syncing, and that's what it says. Step 3, observe when syncing is complete, the volume is marked as healthy. Right now it says it's not healthy. There's a question mark because both disks are trying to sync.
Mhm.
But it tells you, hey, the primary partition is in blue. Look at the one in red. It says mirrored volume. It means we have a RAID configured.
So red means RAID. Well, mirrored in a sense.
It's telling you that the cheat sheet is at bottom. If it's unallocated, you will see it in black, which we don't have any. But
The
if
CD,
it's
the CD's not. Okay, so the
yeah.
CD's.
Yep. It says each copy or each disk now contains copy of the same data on any file operations will be mirrored on each disk. The color coding of the volume is different to that of the partitions on disk 0, the disk hosting the system and boot partition. This color indicates that the volume is mirrored. That's what we just discussed, right?
Yep.
It says to add a mount point, right click on the volume and select change drive letter and path, select the add button and browse. So again, if again in a real world scenario, if this was the, if you were working on a project and you wanted this volume to be available for all the users on this computer, then you can just simply mount the drive, or you make this drive available for any user who logs into this computer, and that's what we're trying to do. So it says right click on the mount volume, and it says change the drive letter and path right here. It's the L drive. The first one, it says add, and then it says browse. Mount this following empty NTFS folder where we will click browse.
I'd click the volume.
It says expand the C user and public. We want to mount this volume to C drive, folder called users, and under users is called public. And it says select new folder under there, and the folder name should be
Click volume.
come on.
I'm trying to right click volume, but it says delete volume on my end for some reason.
Lab files. I'm sorry.
I was I was stuck on the number 4. It says to add mount point, right click volume.
Yeah, so right click on the lab files L drive,
Lab files. Okay, all right. Lab files.
and then you will see change drive letter and
Sorry.
paths.
Change drive level.
Yeah.
Okay, on the lab files, and then select the add button.
Guys, are you rest of you guys are following along? Is this making sense to you guys?
I'm following along.
Is it making sense? Is it helping?
Yeah. I'll just have to redo it too. So, that it clicks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
I'm
not, yeah, I would not expect you guys to know all of this just because you guys are listening to me and following along. This will be I would expect you guys to do each of these lab at least a few times.
Yeah.
And
Honey?
so that would be my expectation, that you guys are doing these lab at least once or twice as you are reviewing the chapters. And then also probably when you start revisioning and preparing for the exam, you guys do this more and more, at least a couple more times, 2 more times. So in total, maybe 3 to 4 times. But as you do them again and again, it will start making more sense and you will pick up a new thing every time you do this lab.
C dash dash use. Oh no, it says expand that file. I can't expand it unless I browse it, right?
Yeah, so if you actually are looking at here, if you do change drive letter and path, if you see my screen, and then you will select C drive, and you will say add, and it says mount in the following empty NTFS folder. You will browse, you will expand the C drive, you will scroll down, you will expand the users folder or directory. You will come down, you will select the public folder, and then it says click on new folder. And once you click on the new folder, you will then say that I want to name this folder as in step 5 as lab files. And then you will click OK, and that should do it for you.
Okay, I just completely.
No worries. Yeah, it's very important. Like you need to follow these step one by one. And again, we are trying to, I know we got like 5-6 minutes. I was trying to just move a little bit faster, but that's when you're doing the lab, just don't skip any step, just do one by one, and then you will be fine. And just take your time, because the first time, even if it takes you an hour or hour and a half, that's okay, as long as you get it right. And then moving forward, once you do it the second time, the third time, it it will take you less time as you get more familiar with these labs. But I'm telling you guys, all of this stuff is very, very, very important. You guys need to know this stuff, not only for the exam, but for your real life scenario. If you know this, you guys will be golden. So spend time, read all of these instructions, because they are teaching you as you go along. Like, why are you doing this? It will have probably an explanation. Your book will give you additional context. So don't overlook any of these sections, any of these labs. I know these labs don't go like sync in with the chapters one to one, but at the end of the day, this is all the content that you need to know for your exam as well as for the real world scenario, because you will run into this at some point. So we already did this. It says select OK, and then that folder should be mapped. It says use the File Explorer browser. So if I go up here, if I go under the C drive, if I click on the users folder, if I go under public, I see that there is a shortcut called lab files. So now this file and all of the content is made available for anyone who logs into this computer. And that was our goal. It says as the nest task, reconfigure the lab files partition as mirrored and mount it as a lab file. So what mount mean is that you will basically map this folder or create a shortcut where anyone who logs into this computer should be able to access these files automatically. And that's exactly what we did. Now it says, and we got 5 more minutes. I want to actually get to the next part just to show you guys how it's done, and then you guys can basically follow these step-by-step instructions. So I may ask you guys to just hang tight for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. It says right click on start. It says go to device manager. My device manager is here. It says expand the disk drivers or drives. Right click on Microsoft Virtual Disk. So disk drive, Microsoft Virtual Disk. It's a there are actually 3 of
There's
them. So I'm
3,
just gonna I'm going to see which one. There you go. Disable device. Disable virtual disks. So let me see which option is there. So I'll just pick one. I think if I click on the first one, I don't see disable, but I see on the other 2. So I'll probably pick the last one. It says disable device. I say yes. And it says select yes to restart. So now it's going to restart my computer. So we'll just give it a second there.
I said disabling this device will cause it to stop functioning. Do you really want to disable it?
I wouldn't start. I think pick the last one, not the first one.
Yeah. That's what I picked the second one. I picked the last one out of all of them. And when I hit disable device, that's the error message that came up.
What does it say?
Disabling this device will cause it to stop functioning. Do you really want to disable it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Your hardware settings have changed. You must restart your computer for these changes to take effect.
Select yes. If you look at the instruction step 2, that's exactly what it's saying. It says confirm the prompt by selecting yes, and then select yes to restart.
Expand disk drive, right click when this. Select disable device, confirm prompt by selecting yes. Select yes to restart. Okay.
And now I'm back in. It says the computer is restarted. So we're going to log back in. Username, password. That's step number 3. Log in.
Okay.
So remember we created the RAID configuration, right? So now we have one of the disks disabled. So technically our RAID is now in an unhealthy state because one of the disks is not available, assuming the disk has gone bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the message at the bottom. It says the volume continues to function using the single device. If the other disk were to fail, the volume would be lost. Remember, so if I go back to quickly on the C drive, if I go to the users, if I go to the public folder, all the files are still accessible. See that? And then also if I go under if I right click on the start menu, if I go under the disk management again, let's see how my RAID is reporting. If you look at it, can you guys see my screen?
I can see it.
So you see we disabled one of the disks, right? So what does it say? The last disk number 2, it says it's missing. And the message that you see, it says failed redundancy because in order for us to have a healthy RAID, we have to have 2 disks available. But in this case, one of the disks, we disabled it purposely. And now it's saying, hey, RAID is not in good condition. But as we said, RAID 1, it means this disk 1 data was being mirrored to disk 2. So we still have access to the data because we only lost 1 disk. We are fine, but the RAID status is in failed status, right?
Yeah, it says failed redundancy.
Yeah. And that's what we expected, right? Because we disabled one of the disk purposely just to see what it would do to the RAID configuration. Make sense?
Yes.
So this is expected. All right, so step number the next one, use disk part. These are the commands. So it says disk management is the easiest way to perform disk configuration. However, you can also use command line tools. These tools should be used with care. In this step, explore the use of disk part command. So it says open a command prompt. It says type in the disk part, hit enter. It says select yes for the UAC prompt, user access control prompt. It says hit yes. And now we see that we are under the disk part section or the command, right? A new elevated window is open.
Do you need the light on?
Yeah.
And it says okay. And then it says type in help, hit enter. These are all the action this command can do. We got a good comprehensive list. It says the next command we should enter should be list disks. Okay. We type that in, see what happens. It tells us that, hey, disk 0 is online. Remember where our operating system is at, C drive. Disk 1, remember we created the it's this disk right here, disk number 1, which is lab files, 8 gigs. And disk 2, we had it disabled, right? Check and see what they're saying. Hey, there's another disk, but it's missing. For some reason, it cannot see. Same information, but now we are looking it through the command line.
Yeah.
See that? It says enter the command called select disk 0. Okay. Select disk 0 to display the configuration of the boot disk. It says disk 0 is now selected. Okay. It says now type in the detailed disk. Hey, give me the details about the C drive. And here's the C drive details. It says, hey, it's Microsoft Virtual Disk. Here's the ID. Status is online. Location path is unavailable. Read only no. Boot disk, yes, it is a boot disk. Do we have page file disk? Yes, this is the disk, etc., etc. Here's all the volumes. There's a recovery partition. Here's a C drive partition, and here's a system partition. We see the same thing here. C partition. I see the recovery partition. I also see a health partition right here. Same thing. But again, now we are reviewing that information, or we are looking at the same information through the command line.
Mine said that it said enter command select disk 0, and when I put that in, then it said disk 0 is now the selected disk.
Now type in or click on that detail disk. Then you will get the information.
Okay. So this part detail disk. Wow.
Okay.
This type path unavailable, location path none, because it's not there. We took it out the system, right?
No, if you have the 0 selected, just type in disk detail disk. That's what you need to do.
I typed in detail disk.
No, we did not take out the disk 0. Remember, we took out the disk 2, at least on my system.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, that's right. Disk 0 is now selected. It said, well, okay, status is online, but it says location path unavailable.
Yeah, that may not show up there, but you will see the partition at the bottom.
Partition is there. Volume 3, volume 2 recovery. Yeah.
Yep. So if you read up on the step number 4, it gives you more detail. I'll let you guys read it when you guys are doing the lab. Step 5, it says enter the command. It says list partition. That's the next command that we need to run. If you hit enter, you'll get the partition on that disk. Again, more details, looking at the information a little bit different view. If you list volume, you will get the list volume in again a little bit more in a different way as looking at the information. And you can even go into each of these volumes separately. That's step number 6 is it says select partition 2. If we go in, it says now partition 2 is selected. We can go and look at the detail of that partition, which again is giving you more context, more information. But you guys get the idea, right? The whole exercise of this is to show you guys how you can view the same information through the command line.
Okay.
About the disk, about each of the partition, how big the partition is, what type of system file that is being used. And in the next section, you will also see how to format a particular partition. We did it through the GUI when we created that L partition, but you can do the same thing using the command line as well. So that's, I think after that section, use format, you will reach the end of the lab. So I'll let you guys basically do and complete the rest of that. I think there are only a few commands that you guys need to run to get that accomplished. But I know we are like about 7 minutes over, but let me take a pause here and see if anyone has any questions.
I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to know if you can send the recording tonight so that while I'm doing the homework, I can watch it over.
Yeah, I think, yeah, what I'll do is that's a good question. Let me see as soon as this recording becomes available, I will definitely share that with the class. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Just
you.
keep an eye on the WhatsApp group. That's where actually I will post the recording link. Okay.
Okay, and can you email it also because I can't access my WhatsApp on my laptop?
Got it. Yeah, I can do that too. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining the class. Hopefully you guys learned a few new things.
Yes.
Yes. Who
No,
learned new things?
I did.
I've definitely learned new
Yeah.
things
Today was all.
that I have to practice.
Well, I learned that this training is way better than the other ones I've seen. It's like night and day, I'm telling you.
I keep telling everybody about my boy Asim. He know what he's doing. So
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's put it down. At least now I know what's, how to get this in, how to understand the difference of where the disk is at, and how to use the command line, which is the most important factor. Yeah, that's going
No,
on.
great. Yeah, this is great, guys. As long as you guys are learning new things, that's the whole purpose of this. Um, you know, just make sure, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you guys to do all of these labs. Because imagine if you can do all this, uh, how valuable this information is. And I can tell you from my experience, like this is good 60-70% of your job, like what you will be learning in this section. Like the hardware portion was just to build up, but this is where the meat and potatoes is. Like this is where you will learn how to troubleshoot, how to navigate, how to do certain things. So this is a very solid foundation stuff that you guys will be learning throughout this course. So keep up the good work. Don't miss the labs. Don't fall behind. It's gonna pile up before you even know it. So just make sure you guys are keeping up with the class. Okay.